The anime begins with the protagonist complaining about the shutdown of the servers of the game he had been playing for 3 years. To him, that type of game was worthless, since he was looking for something truly challenging. A game so difficult that it would take at least 10 years to be completed. With this in mind, he decides to search for a hardcore game, known for having terrible balancing. During his search, he ends up finding a suspicious website that advertised a game with no defined ending. As a true game enthusiast, it was obvious that he would enter that site. While browsing through the difficulty options, his eyes are drawn to the so-called Hell mode. This immediately excites him, as it was a level of challenge completely different from anything he had ever seen. After selecting this difficulty, the next step is choosing a class. Among all the available options, he chooses the most complicated one of all, the Summoner class. At the moment he confirms this choice, he discovers that he has been automatically placed in the social class of a servant. As soon as he finishes all the settings, something unexpected happens and he ends up being pulled into the screen of his own computer. Soon after, he awakens in another world, now in the body of a newborn baby. His father holds him in his arms and decides to name him Alan. The scene then moves forward to some time later. He silently reflects that, in his previous life, he was a 35-year-old office worker, burdened with debt, with no talent for relating to other people, and went by the name Kenichi Yamada. However, he had reincarnated into that strange world and was now only 1 year old. Even without being able to speak, he was perfectly capable of understanding everything that was said around him. Alan was born into a family of servants, exactly as described on the game's website. The village where he lived was located near the border, and its inhabitants had to pay taxes to a feudal lord in exchange for the right to cultivate those lands. His father was named Rodden, and his mother went by the name Therja. For now, he was an only child, but he believed that he would soon have a sibling. When they notice that the boy is sleepy, his parents take him to bed. As soon as they leave the room, Alan tries to access his status window, but nothing happens. This irritates him, since he should have possessed summoner abilities from the very beginning. He tries once more, but this time he performs the command only in his mind. Thus, a grimoire finally appears before him. Startled, the baby lets out a scream. His parents immediately rush in to see what had happened, but Alan acts quickly and pretends to be asleep. Convinced that everything is fine, they leave the room. As soon as he is alone again, Alan summons the grimoire once more. Upon opening it, he is able to view his attributes. On another page, he finds detailed information about his summoning and creation abilities. At the moment, he was only capable of summoning insects and animals of rank H. A new page opens, displaying a message from the god of creation, who apologizes for the delay in delivering the grimoire. Ignoring this for now, Alan tries to summon an insect, but fails. Thinking of an alternative, he decides to use the creation ability first. By doing so, he manages to create a grasshopper card. However, before he can attempt to summon it, his mother enters the room. Once again, he pretends to be asleep. After she leaves, Alan realizes that he is extremely tired and decides to leave the summoning for the next day. The following day, everything proceeds normally, with the villagers working in the fields. When he finally manages to be alone, Alan uses his summoning ability and a grasshopper appears before him. He tries to give orders to the insect, but receives no response, which makes him imagine that it might be some kind of game error. He then checks the grasshopper's information in the grimoire and decides to name it Denka. By analyzing its effects, he realizes that the creature granted a 1-point increase in endurance and agility. After several days of training and improving his abilities, Alan finally manages to summon an animal of rank H, a small mouse that is given the name Mousy. Just like Denka, the little mouse was not very intelligent. Even so, at least both of them obeyed when given simple commands. The mouse's ability was running, while the grasshopper's was jumping. By examining the grimoire more carefully, Alan discovers that he could store up to 10 cards of each creature. He learns that the bonuses granted by these cards were extremely important. For example, by storing 10 mouse cards, his attack attribute increased by 10 points. Thanks to this, he already possessed enough strength to easily surpass what any ordinary baby would be capable of. Even so, leveling up and learning new abilities was 100 times more difficult due to the choice of Hell mode. Shortly after, Rodden announces that he has returned, and Alan goes to meet him accompanied by his mother. His father is covered in blood from hunting and explains that he had taken down a massive boar. He then asks if his son would like to see it. The boy, full of excitement, responds positively. After saying their goodbyes, they head to the place where the animal is being cleaned. During the walk, Rodden points to some birds and explains that they were called albagarons. He comments that he chose the name Alan in honor of these creatures, since they could use their wings to fly freely anywhere in the world. Despite this, Derja had become very angry upon discovering that her son's name had been inspired by a monster. Upon arriving at the location, Alan is impressed by the size of the boar. Shortly afterward, Gerda appears. The man shows curiosity upon noticing that Alan had dark hair and eyes, something rare in that region. Alan greets Gerda, which surprises him, as he did not expect such a small child to be so sharp. He comments that his daughter, Krina, was the same age, but was far from showing that level of intelligence. Alan asks if the boar was truly strong. Gerda explains that it was a rank C monster and that at least 20 people were required to defeat it. 10 months pass until Alan finally reaches the second level of summoning. When he checks his statistics, he realizes that he is now capable of calling rank G creatures, and, in addition, his grimoire has unlocked a completely new ability, Summoning Fusion. Excited by the possibilities, he decides to test everything immediately, but soon notices that his MP is completely depleted. Without wasting time, he eats his meal as fast as he can, determined to return quickly to try something different. After recovering, Alan attempts to fuse 2 mice, but discovers that he still does not have enough MP, even with the bar completely full. Confused, he then tries to create a new summoning card, but the result is the same. Frustration takes over as he realizes that, at that moment, the new functions are still out of his reach. Time passes, and the scene shifts to when Alan has already turned 3 years old. His body is now stronger, his MP has increased considerably, and at last, he is able to use all the newly unlocked functions of the grimoire. Without hesitation, he fuses 2 rank G cards and obtains a bird of the same rank as a result. Satisfied, he decides to name it Chappie. The summoning is successful, and Alan feels thrilled as he watches his new companion take shape before him. Chappie possesses the ability to imitate voices, something Alan considers perfect for confusing and deceiving enemies in the future. Soon after, he summons the Frog Hopper and the Mole. Hopper has the ability to provoke opponents, which would be ideal for drawing enemy attention during battle. The Mole, called Molly, has the ability to dig, something perfect for preparing hidden traps in the terrain. While reflecting on the need to better master the abilities of his summons, Alan ends up getting distracted and falls into a hole freshly dug by Molly. The fall reminds him of an important reality. Despite his powers, he is still just a child and will not be facing real enemies anytime soon. When the 3 o'clock bell rings, his worries increase even more. A familiar voice echoes through the area, leaving him uneasy. It is Krita, Gerda's daughter, who has appeared to play warriors with him. Alan knows he cannot treat that confrontation lightly. Krita is extremely fast, and even after he has allocated all of his creature's bonuses into agility, he still has trouble keeping up with her. In the end, she wins the duel by breaking his sword. As evening falls, Alan's parents return home, and Derja's belly is already much bigger. Derja asks Krita to return home, explaining that it is already late. During dinner, Alan tells his father that he would like to accompany him to the farm to help with the harvest. Since his mother is pregnant and will not be able to work, Rodden immediately refuses the suggestion, and Derja agrees with him. Both acknowledge how much Alan has been helping with household chores, but emphasize that he is still very young and should only be concerned with playing. From Alan's point of view, he already has strength comparable to that of an adult and could contribute. Even so, he understands the reason for the refusal. After all, no parent would want to place their own child in such a heavy situation. Derja comments that she saw him throwing stones at a tree behind the house. Alan explains that he was training in case a monster appeared, so he could protect his mother. Deep down, he knows that this was not the real reason, since his true goal was to unlock a new ability. Rodden feels proud upon hearing that his son wants to protect Derja and comments that he can hardly wait to find out what Alan's abilities will be during the evaluation ceremony. Not understanding what that is about, Alan listens as Rodden explains. Upon turning 5 years old, every child participates in a ceremony in which they awaken a class. If they obtain a valuable class, there is a chance to leave behind the life of a servant. A few months pass, winter arrives, and Alan is now capable of maintaining a summon active for an entire day. Shortly afterward, Krina appears once again. As usual, she challenges him to a duel, and once again, Alan ends up defeated. Rodden arrives home, and Derja goes to greet him. At that moment, Denka jumps onto her, causing her to be startled and fall. Derja says that everything is fine, but soon feels intense pain. Rodden asks Krina to go fetch her mother, as the baby is about to be born, and takes Derja to the bed. Meanwhile, Alan takes charge of boiling water. As soon as the water heats up, Krina returns accompanied by her mother, Matilda. She orders the men to leave the room, leaving only the women to help Derja during the childbirth. They wait outside for several hours. As dawn approaches, the cry of a baby finally echoes through the house. Alan now has a brother. Rodden decides to name him Mash, a name that Derja questions, asking whether it was inspired by a monster. Rodden responds only with a smile, confirming that she is right. Watching the joy stamped on everyone's faces, Alan begins to wonder what the reason for his reincarnation was, setting aside the fact that, in his past life, he was merely someone addicted to games who only thought about leveling up. He was nothing more than a lonely worker, trapped in routine and games. There is nothing from that life that he misses. In contrast, he deeply loves the idea of his new family. Even without knowing exactly how he will do it, Alan decides that he will do everything within his power to free his family from the life of servitude. Several years passed, and Alan continued walking alongside his father along one of the roads in the region. As they walked, he showed curiosity and wanted to know how the evaluation ceremony worked. Rodden then explained that it was a very important event, in which everyone had to participate upon turning 5 years old, from servants to nobles. He commented that if someone showed a valuable talent, that person could escape a life of servitude. However, he pointed out that there was a problem. The number of competitors was enormous. Alan found this observation strange and asked why his father thought that way. Rodden then explained that shortly after they settled in that land, families began having children non-stop. As a result, there were now many children about to turn 5 years old, including Alan. In the middle of the conversation, they heard Kreta's voice in the distance along with her father's. Upon noticing this, they decided to all go together. After walking for some more time, they spotted the commoners' village in the distance. When they arrived at the place where the ceremony would be held, Alan observed a large number of servants and commoners gathered. Soon after, the doors of the building opened. 3 members of the church appeared and began to bless everyone, invoking the name of Elmia, the god of creation. The church representatives wished everyone good luck and commented that the kingdom had already had heroes whose origins came directly from servitude. This statement surprised many commoners, who found it difficult to believe. To reinforce her words, the woman cited Clases, the saint, who was born a commoner, and Diverg, the sword lord, who was merely a servant. Upon hearing this, Alan recalled that in the game, classes such as hero and sword lord needed to emerge from lower social classes. Even knowing that this was part of the game's settings, he imagined that this logic also applied to that world. Because of this, he began to understand why everyone, without exception, had to go through the ceremony. The priests then asked everyone to enter. Inside the place, Alan carefully observed the statues of the gods worshipped there. The central statue represented Elmia, the god of creation, which made Alan remember the time when the developers had sent him a letter. Soon after, the evaluation ceremony began. The first to be called was the village chief, Deboji, accompanied by his son, Palomas. The priest asked the boy to place his hand on the crystal ball. As soon as he obeyed, his parameters appeared on a metal plate. The result revealed that he had talent to become a merchant. Deboji was extremely happy and ran to congratulate his son. One after another, the villagers were evaluated. Some showed no talent at all, while another boy manifested the talent of an axe user with a rank A attribute. After many tests, only Alan and Krina remained. The priests called Krina first. The girl ran to the front, visibly excited. The moment she placed her hand on the crystal ball, it began to shine with such intense brightness that it made everyone uneasy. However, the members of the church were delighted when they confirmed the result. Krina possessed the talent of Sword Lord, one of the most powerful classes in existence. The news threw the village into an uproar, as no one expected someone with such talent to appear in such a small place. The girl's father congratulated her with pride. Even so, Krina showed a certain frustration, as she would not become exactly a swordswoman, as she had wished. Alan, on the other hand, remained calm. He had already imagined that something like this would happen, considering the absurd strength she displayed. Without further delay, the priest called Alan. Inside, he felt anxious, believing that everyone would finally discover that he was a summoner. When he placed his hand on the crystal ball, it began to shine intensely, to the point of throwing Alan backward. Everyone around believed that this indicated an extraordinary talent. However, when approaching and asking about the result, the priest informed him, with some regret, that Alan had no talent at all. Alan refused to accept this answer. He approached again and observed his own parameters, realizing that all of them were classified as rank E. Irritated, he began to curse the developers in his mind, complaining that they did not know how to configure the game properly. To him, this was absurd, since no one would be able to perceive that he was a summoner. At that moment, Rodden approached his son and, without touching on the subject, said that it was time to return home, as his mother was waiting. When they arrived, they were received with joy by Derja and Alan's brother. Later, during dinner, his parents talked with him and stated that talents do not define a person's worth, reinforcing that Alan would always be a source of pride for them. Realizing how understanding his parents were, Alan felt grateful to have been born into that family. Then, everyone shared a warm embrace. Later, while everyone was sleeping, Alan began testing his grimoire. He reflected that, on that day, he had learned something important. He was the only one in that world playing on Inferno mode. Since everyone at the ceremony was 5 years old, that meant everyone should show rank E exactly like him. He concluded that the rank system probably indicated how much each person could evolve as they leveled up. Therefore, the reason all of his attributes were rank E must be linked to the fact that, in Inferno mode, his growth was only a fraction of the normal. In this way, the ranks were showing only a minimal part of his true potential. Alan thought that this would leave anyone desperate, but that was not his case. He believed he was in that world to put poorly made games in their proper place. Although, before that, he needed to make the developers fix that ridiculous game. Holding the grimoire, he decided to write a detailed complaint with everything he thought. The next day, Alan went out for a walk alongside his mother. During the stroll, he asked what was going on with his father, since he noticed him acting strangely. Derja explained that he had been like that since he came home late the previous night. Later, they head to Jurda's house, where they will celebrate Krina's talent. The girl speaks excitedly, saying that she discovered her talent is even better than that of a swordswoman. Alan shows surprise and asks if that is really true. Krina continues talking, stating that she will now become even stronger. At that moment, Matilda comments that the village chief stopped by her house and left a liquor for the celebration. Rodden seems pleased with the news, but remembering that he has been annoyed with that family lately, he merely congratulates them and wishes them to enjoy the drink. Jurda then points out that, in that house, guests always drink before the hosts. Noticing his father's behavior, Alan wonders if he might be feeling some kind of jealousy because of the talent issue. Soon after, he dismisses the idea, remembering that Rodden does not usually act that way. At that moment, he hears the two adults begin to argue. Rodden states that Krina's talent is impressive and that it deserves to be celebrated. In response, Jurda demands an explanation as to why he said that they would cut ties with her family. Rodden explains that this is not exactly what he wants, but he believes that since Krina will join the cavalry and serve the country, it would not be appropriate to waste time maintaining closeness with servants. Alan finally understands that his father is trying to do something he considers a favor, even though no one asked for it. Gerda grabs Rodden and comments that it is not something so serious. Rodden insists that it is indeed important. The argument between the two intensifies, making the atmosphere increasingly heavy. Alan asks Krina to try to calm them down. The girl grips her sword, ready to intervene, but before she can do anything, the wives step into the middle of the fight and resolve the situation firmly. With everything apparently settled, Krina goes back to eating normally. Alan then asks Matilda if those arguments are frequent. Matilda replies that they are, but comments that the arrival of the children helped the two become calmer, since in the past they used to resort to physical aggression. The mothers explain that the four adults have been friends since childhood and grew up in the same village. They recall that about 10 years ago, a rumor emerged that a new village would be built. Because of that, they decided to unite and participate together in this project, even discussing as a group the idea of working side by side to build their own houses. They ask if Alan never noticed that all the houses have practically the same shape. The boy replies that he had already noticed that. Rodden then comments that it was easier to build everything at the same time, dividing the tasks among everyone. On a new day, while the parents were busy with work, news arrives that the Order of Knights was looking for Krina. The villagers gather quickly. Among them also appears the boy who has the talent of an axe user. He provokes Alan, asking what someone without talent would be doing there, since people like that would have no place in such a situation. Upon hearing this, Krina gets irritated and tries to move toward him, but her father stops her before anything happens. Suddenly, the village chief announces that the Order of Knights has arrived. People move aside, opening a path. The axe boy is impressed when he realizes that the one who came was the captain himself, a master swordsman. The captain approaches the chief and directly asks for Krina, who is immediately called. Krina and her father step forward. The girl introduces herself enthusiastically before the captain. After observing her carefully, the captain orders her to take part in a duel. Gerda questions this decision, stating that Krina is only 5 years old and has never even wielded a real sword. The captain replies that, being a sword lady, this should not represent any problem. With a cold look, he asks whether they lied during the ceremony and whether someone dared to try to deceive Baron Granvelle. Then, Zenoff calls his vice-captain and orders him to prepare himself. Alan is confused by the situation. The captain then explains to Gerda that falsifying the results of the evaluation ceremony is a crime punishable by death. Therefore, it would be necessary to confirm whether the girl's talent is legitimate. Thus, the fencing duel is officially announced. Everyone around is shocked. Gerda begs for it not to happen. However, the captain makes it clear that if Krina refuses to fight, the entire family will be executed. The girl, in turn, shows no fear at all. Upon seeing a real sword, she becomes excited and tells her father that she will fight. Soon after, she positions herself in front of the vice-captain. Both introduce themselves. The vice-captain's name is Leibrand. Krina advances first, swinging her sword with force. Leibrand tries to counterattack, but Krina blocks the strike. When she almost manages to reach him, the vice-captain uses his feet and, with a kick, throws her against the wall. Gerda and the others become furious and demand that the fight be stopped. Even so, Krina gets up without hesitation and unleashes a special skill. With impressive speed and strength, she charges at Leibrand again. He can do nothing but defend himself until, in a moment of carelessness, Krina breaks his sword. The captain then declares the end of the duel. Krina regains her composure and comments that the fight ended far too quickly. Satisfied, she thanks the vice-captain for the match, while he falls to the ground, completely exhausted. Upon witnessing this scene, Gerda is moved and celebrates together with the soldiers. After seeing all of this, the captain has no more reason to doubt. He approaches Gerda, praises his upbringing, and states that he raised a true sword lady. He then apologizes for having doubted them and invites them to eat and talk about his daughter's future, also allowing them to bring their friends. Thus, everyone heads to the residence of the city chief. The atmosphere remains tense. Alan wonders why the axe boy and his father decided to follow them, but ends up setting that aside, taking advantage of the opportunity to take some fruits to his home. At that moment, the captain begins to speak, introduces himself as Zenoff, and explains that he was sent by order of his lord to confirm whether a true sword lord really existed there. With that visit, it becomes clear that everything was true. When addressing the village chief, the captain comments that, initially, that village located on the frontier would receive his name once it was fully established. However, now that it has been confirmed that a sword lord was born there, his lord decided that the place should be named in honor of this event, becoming known as Krina Village. The village chief does not question the decision and accepts it promptly. He then explains to the villagers the reason why he allowed Krina to be subjected to such a harsh trial. He tells them that 3 years earlier, a sword lord was born into a count's family and even came to serve the royal family. However, that person's performance fell far below expectations. After a new evaluation, they discovered that the supposed special talent was nothing more than a common swordsman talent. After that case, the kingdom realized that several members of the nobility had inflated or falsified their talents. For that reason, they decided to carefully review all the results of the evaluation ceremonies. Turning to Gerda, the captain apologizes once again for having placed his daughter in that situation. He asks Gerda to continue taking care of her and to help her develop, so that when she turns 12, she can study at the academy and, in the future, serve the royal family directly. Alan is surprised when he hears that. At that moment, the axe boy asks whether anyone could enter that academy and become a knight. The boy's father immediately scolds him, telling him to behave, and apologizes to the captain. Zenoff explains that, in the future, an instructor will be sent to the village and suggests that the boy devote himself to his studies in order to try to earn a place at the academy. Hearing this, Krina comments to Alan that he should study together with them as well. Alan replies that he intends to do so. The axe boy, however, reacts with laughter, saying that Alan would not have sufficient ability. Krina immediately steps forward to defend him. Alan, in turn, reacts with complete indifference, since in his mind, he is nothing more than a 40-year-old adult living in that body. The captain then carefully observes Alan's dark hair and eyes and asks who he is. Rawdon replies that he is his son, and Gerda reinforces the introduction. Upon hearing Rawdon's name, the captain shows surprise and asks if he is the same Rawdon known as the Boar Hunter. He then stands up and apologizes for having been so rude to someone considered a legend in that village. Rawdon becomes confused and asks what he is talking about. The captain explains that the Baron greatly appreciates the boar meat sent by the village every winter. According to what he has heard, Rawdon is the one who always takes on the most dangerous part of the hunts, being seen by many as a true local hero. The captain asks Rawdon to accept that as a compliment, both from the Baron and from himself. Hearing all of this, Alan cannot help but think that his father is someone truly impressive. Later, while they were returning home, Rawdon shares an important lesson with his son. Even though they are only servants, they can still be recognized by important people. He asks Alan to never give up and to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult the work may be. Alan comments that his father was recognized by someone important. He also mentions that he picked some fruits to take to his mother and his brother, asking if that had been wrong. Rawdon simply laughs at the question, showing that he did the same and even took a larger amount. And so we end the second episode of the anime Hell Mode, The Hardcore Gamer. If you want the continuation of the next episodes, leave it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep catching the upcoming videos. See you next time.